In England, we are spoiled for goals. Every weekend, we watch wonderful goals from the likes of Mohamed Salah, Harry Kane, Jamie Vardy, and others.
For Celso, for Son, for Kane. Oh. Classic Jose Mourinho, classic Harry Kane. 2-0.
Whether it's Leeds or Liverpool, we see our fair share of goals. But in Spain, fans aren't quite so fortunate. In La Liga, goals are far harder to come by, especially in recent years. Perhaps it's only fitting then that this season, traditionally defensive-minded Atletico Madrid are leading the league. Today we ask, why is La Liga the lowest scoring league in Europe's Big Five leagues?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been a competitive La Liga campaign. Atletico Madrid being there challenging for the title for the first time in several years is something new and unique.
Ewan McTeer is a Madrid-based football journalist.
And then Barcelona and Real Madrid struggles, especially Barcelona. That's always interesting, create storylines, and we've seen other teams like Real Sociedad, Villarreal fighting up the top. So it's been interesting in the sense of being competitive, but as we'll get on to, might not have been as many goals as in some other years.
Yeah, let's talk about goals. How does La Liga compare to the other Big Five leagues when it comes to goal scoring?
Yeah, so at this moment in time, it's 2.41 goals per game, which compared to the other four major leagues around Europe is by far the lowest. Liga is next, 2.77. Then the Premier League with 2.81, and then Serie A and the Bundesliga both have the same with 3.15, which is just incredible. So yeah, fewer goals in any of the other leagues, and also just in La Liga from that point of view, fewer goals of any league since 2014-15. So it's not been too many goals this season. Let's try and work out why.
Yeah, so let's dig into that a little bit because, half a goal a game or close to half a goal between La Liga and the Premier League and more than half a goal, between La Liga and Serie A and Bundesliga is quite big. And for people that might be thinking that's quite small, that's actually like, around 100 goals a game or more, over the course of a season, So why do you think that La Liga has so many fewer goals scored this season and in recent years compared to those other leagues?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons which I know is sitting on the fence kind of response. So I'll break down a couple of them. One of them, I think, is that a lot of teams are playing quite negative and defensive first football. The most commonly used formation in La Liga this year by far is 4-4-2, a very defensive 4-4-2. I'd say around half of the teams in the division right now are playing that, and most of them are the teams in the bottom half. And then you've got the issue of the lack of real superstar goal scorers. I mean, just a few years ago in La Liga, we had Cristiano Ronaldo, we had Neymar, we had an in-form Griezmann. Now we don't have that, and even Messi, his scoring pace has slowed down too.
You mentioned the rise of the 4-4-2 or how a lot of teams are using that. Why are they using that formation? It's been in vogue, at least in Germany and in England especially, to use of more, counter pressing or, kind of high octane defensive pressure style.
Yeah, I think it's because teams started to use that against Barcelona and Real Madrid when they had, the very, very best players in the world, and it worked. So other teams have obviously copied. You look at when Valencia won the Copa del Rey just a few years ago, they defeated Barcelona in the final.
Wszyscy protestują. Undiano Majenko użył gwizdka po raz ostatni. Valencia 8 raz w swojej historii sięga po Copa del Rey po raz pierwszy od 2008 roku. A więc nie to...
They went for a 4-4-2, but with good quality players in it, and it worked. So other teams lower down the league have copied that, and it's worked for them. So why change it? Even some of the teams coming up have been changing their style to copy the formula that's worked for some of the teams who've been able to avoid relegation in the past few years.
Does any of this come down to like coach education or how some of these coaches kind of got their career started? Because, a lot of this obviously is down to the philosophy of managers. And, based on what you're saying is a lot of these managers are quite conservative.
Yeah, a lot of the managers are very similar, and it's the same in Spain as any other country. You have your sort of merry-go-round of relegation fighting managers. At this time of year, clubs start to sack their managers, and the names that come up are pretty much the same as always. You have specialists who can come in, get a team well organised, pick up enough points to survive. So, yeah, the coaching in La Liga is not as exotic as in some other leagues. It's not as varied as in other leagues. The Premier League obviously is the main example where you have coaches from so many different corners of Europe or the world. In La Liga, it's, apart from Zidane, it's all Spanish and Argentine, or in the case of Pellegrini, Chilean coaches. It's very similar styles, especially amongst the Spanish coaches, and you don't get too much variety.
Unlike other leagues, which have been increasing in modern years or in recent years, goal scoring in La Liga has been going down in recent years, which, just goes against the trend in general in football. Why do you think it's...
So I think it goes back to the departures of players like Neymar and Ronaldo. I mean, if we look at the last few years, the one in La Liga with the most goals was 2016-17. Back then you had 2.94 goals per game in La Liga, and the main reason for that was that Barcelona and Real Madrid, they scored 116 for Barcelona, 106 for Real Madrid. The rest of the teams kind of had similar numbers to now. I mean, if you project it out, for example, the bottom place team in 2016-17 was Granada with 30 goals. If you project out the current bottom place side, Huesca, they would have 30 goals this season. Even in mid-table, your 10th place team from 2016-17 had 46 goals. That was Osasuna. Your 10th place team right now is Betis, and they're on pace to score 44. So the real difference is at the top with Real Madrid and Barcelona. I mean, this season right now, Real Madrid are on pace to score 63 goals, and Barcelona on pace to score 78. That's way below the 116 and 106 that they had just a few years ago.
Although, to play devil's advocate a little bit, after Ronaldo left, it was still even a little bit higher than it is now. But that also, causes some, at least concern from my point of view, because if you're watching a game without Barca or Real, it kind of indicates that most likely you're only going to have about 2 goals or thereabouts in a game. Yeah,
exactly. It's true. And because a lot of the time we do see teams that are both playing quite negative football, even against each other. It's, these teams, like I said, came up with this 4-4-2 defensive-minded formation to cope against the biggest teams. But even when they play each other, they're tending to use that same formation. There's very few examples of teams that are going away from that trend. One of them recently, which give them credit, is Real Valladolid. I mean, their first couple of years after coming up to La Liga, they were one of the teams with the lowest budgets. They played 4-4-2. They sat back. They took what they could. This season, they really went for it. They've changed formation a little bit. They're a bit more attacking. It took them about 14 weeks to get their first clean sheet, but they're earning the same amount of points as before, but they're playing a bit more attacking. But that's a very rare example. Not many teams are going against this 4-4-2 that the smaller side play in that relegation battle area.
Just as an example, if we look at, the table, Barcelona average more than 2 goals a game, but really besides them, only Atletico and Real have scored even more than 30 goals. And just as a comparison for people out there, the Bundesliga and the Premier League and Italy have much more. We're talking about 5, 5, and 7 respectively. Are there any other teams to watch, or are there any other teams that, besides Valladolid, that deserve maybe a little bit more praise in their attacking mentality?
Yeah, I mean, looking below the big three, there's not too many, to be honest. Real Sociedad are one. They're good to watch, and Sevilla and Villarreal too, to an extent, although these are teams that do kind of like to take their time in possession and slowly work to open up opportunities. It's like a boxer picking you apart slowly rather than just coming out swinging. Then there's Real Betis, who definitely have an attacking mentality. Their squad is very top heavy in that sense. Lots of good offensive players, not too many great defenders, so it's because of necessity. But yeah, they really go for every single game, and it makes sense. You look at their numbers, they've got the fewest draws, and they've got 7 wins and 9 losses in addition to their 2 draws. So they go for every game, and sometimes it works perfectly, or sometimes it backfires spectacularly. But apart from those, there's not too many teams that start the game really going for it.
You mentioned, obviously, the loss of Ronaldo a couple of years ago was big for the league. Who are the top goal scorers right now in La Liga?
Yeah, so Messi's top, and obviously there's no surprise there. He's got 11, but even for him, that's a bit low at this stage of a season. If you project that out, he'd be expected to get 23 for the whole season. that would be his lowest since 2008, 2009. And even last season, he already had a big drop off when he scored 25. I mean, that was still enough to win the Pichichi, the top scorer award. And he also had 22 assists, which made him the first player to ever have over 20 goals and over 20 assists in La Liga. And I think that tells you a little bit about what Messi's role is these days. He's dropping deeper, he's more of a creator than just a finisher. Apart from Messi, the other top scorers, you've got Gerard Moreno with 10, and then Iago Aspas and Luis Suarez with 9 each, and then Karim Benzema and Youssef En-Nesyri with 8 each. So, yeah, nobody's really standing out. And what's also interesting is there's no real one team that has a couple of names in there. Many teams right now have one main goal scorer, and after that, a big drop off to their second top scorer.
Is it alarming reading some of those names? I mean, 3 of the players you just mentioned, Messi, Suarez, and Benzema, are all 33 or older and most likely kind of past their prime.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But at the same time, I mean, you look at someone like Lewandowski, who's just had maybe the best year of his career, and he's 32 now, I think, and not too much younger than some of these players. So with centre forwards, sometimes these players do get better with age. They maybe lose something, a little yard of pace, but they gain so much in experience and knowing how to deal with the. So I do think some of those names we've mentioned do have a good few years left. But yeah, of course, it's concerning that there's not too many coming through to take on the baton after they go away.
Do you think that Spanish teams are producing enough goal scorers?
Yeah, there aren't really too many young strikers coming through. I mean, that's true. There's a lot of good young wingers or attacking midfielders right now, but it kind of remains to be seen if, the likes of Vinicius, Rodrigo, you've got Pedri too. I don't really know if these guys can become regular goal scorers. I think the exception to that is Ansu Fati, who certainly looks like he's got it. He already had 13 goals for Barcelona. He's only just turned 18, and he would have so many more if he hadn't suffered his long-term knee injury that's ruled him out for most of this season. But yeah, apart from Ansu Fati, there's a lot of good young players coming through, but not necessarily players who have proven they can regularly score goals.
In the past, we had Fernando Torres, David Villa, and Diego Costa. Is there a reason that you think Spain is producing more, as you said, wingers and less goal-scoring forwards, even despite the fact that they are playing, with a 4-4-2 with forwards up top?
Yeah, I mean, I think Spain has produced a lot of good midfielders recently. It kind of became cool to be the guy in the middle, controlling the game and setting up the goals, especially because you saw guys like Xavi and Iniesta doing that with the Spain team that won so much. So maybe more younger players coming through wanted to play in those positions. I had a look on Transfer Market at the Spanish players with the top market values. Now, obviously, those market values aren't the most reliable, but for comparison's sake, they're useful to an extent. And it's kind of amazing the lack of centre forwards on there. If you look at the list just now, I'll read through some of the top players in the order. Your first player, you've got a winger, a midfielder, midfielder, centre forward. The first Spanish player there, number 7 on the list, is Morata. And then you've got to go all the way down to about number 22 for your next highest rated centre forward. That's Gerard Moreno. Everyone in between is a winger, a midfielder, a couple of fullbacks. And I think that just shows you that maybe the influence of that 2008, 2010 Spanish team was that it made it cool to be a midfielder. And now there's maybe too many.
From a big picture standpoint, are Spanish or La Liga executives worried about this lack of goal scoring talent or lack of goal scoring, or do they think it's just like a blip in the pan and it's just cyclical?
Yeah, I don't think they're too concerned because the Liga's grown in many other ways. I mean, the La Liga president, Javier Tebas, has been asked this specific question about what he thought when La Liga lost Neymar and Ronaldo, and he maintains that no, it didn't hurt the league. He says that the figures have shown there's been no major shift of viewers from La Liga to Ligue 1 or Serie A when those two players left. Losing Messi might be different, but yeah, I think La Liga has generally grown in other ways that losing one or two massive players, losing a few goals each weekend might not change anything for now.
Have you noticed a lack of interest amongst fans?
I mean, this season's kind of hard to gauge because there's definitely been less interest this season, but to be honest, I think that's more because of the pandemic. Fans can't go to games. The whole incentive to also watch games on TV and just to follow the day-to-day is less. If you're not going to the office, you're not having those water cooler moments where you want to know what's going on. If you're not going to home games, you don't want to watch the away game in between so that you're up to date for the pre-match drinks. So I think there has been a general decline in interest in football, not just in Spain, I think everywhere. But to be honest, I think that's more because of the behind closed doors element that we've got right now.
You said that Tabas doesn't seem worried, but should he be? Like, if Spain is trying to market itself internationally, especially, do you think this could hurt the marketability of the league?
I don't know. I mean, the last TV rights cycle was 2019 to 2022, and it was up quite a lot. It was up 15% domestically and 30% with the international broadcasters. The next cycle starts in 2022, and it is something we're going to see if they can increase the income there or not. So we'll get an answer probably within the next year or so. But yeah, I think La Liga has generally been growing little by little. They've generally been quite sensible. And this is maybe another reason why clubs aren't able to spend as much on the best strikers is La Liga has these very strict economic controls right now, and it's something they're very proud about because the debt is going down. It's leading to, long-term sustainability, and we really saw that, I think, in the last transfer market in the summer because even though there'd been the coronavirus pandemic, even though clubs everywhere had lost so much in income, La Liga clubs still had these economic controls to comply with, and they spent 66% less in the summer of 2020 than they did in the summer of 2019. And that was a far bigger drop than every other major European league. Bundesliga was down 59%, Liga on 33%, Serie A 33%, and the Premier League was only down 23% in spending. So maybe that's partly why this season some of the other leagues have just more quality, better players. But long term, I think this is good for La Liga because it's all about controlling debt and thinking beyond the pandemic and thinking that this might last for a while. So again, it could just be a blip that it's something related to the coronavirus and the drop in spending we saw last summer.
We've already seen in this transfer window Atletico Madrid sign Moussa Dembele from Lyon. Is there a chance that we could see Atletico lead the league in goals this year?
Maybe there could be. They're on track to score about 73, 74 at the moment, which is just below what I said before about Barcelona. So there's a chance for it, and that's partly because they have changed their style recently. They've noticed that teams more and more are playing 4-4-2 against them, so that doesn't work. They have to go and attack a bit more. So yeah, that could happen. The Moussa Dembele signing is quite an interesting one to me because it sort of goes against the trend we've seen of very smart, sensible spending from La Liga clubs. We saw Real Madrid didn't sign anybody in the summer of 2020, and Atletico have gone out, brought Dembele in on loan, but with an option to buy that's about 33 million euros. And I mean, we know how these transfers work. When there's an option to buy, it's sometimes not really an option if you don't want to really burn all your bridges with certain clubs and agents. So to me, it seems like this is something they might trigger. And that kind of goes away from the sensible spending that we've seen mostly in the league. It might bring more goals, but in the long term, I don't know how that impacts Atletico because, yeah, their finances aren't great. And maybe this is one club that's really going for the short-term game compared to the long-term planning from some of the other bigger teams in La Liga.
I framed this episode as why has La Liga been unable to create and score goals as much as the other leagues? But am I being too harsh? Is it that actually Spain is just the best defensive league?
Yeah, no, I do think there is something to that. If you name some of the defenders in the league, and there's some of the best established names. You've got the likes of Sergio Ramos, Varane, Piqué, Jimenez, Savage. There's young guys who are coming through as well that are really talented that we've seen this season. Ronald Araujo at Barcelona has been really good. Paul Torres has been good for a couple of years. Even Julius Koundé at Sevilla has attracted a lot of attention. And then in La Liga, there's just a lot of defenders who are quite underrated, under-discussed, and maybe that's the way the directors at those clubs want it. You've got the Athletic Club pair of Uri and Inigo Martinez. Gabriel at Valencia has really improved since he came to La Liga, and Jenny at Getafe is just another really underrated guy. So there are some really tough defenses to break down for these La Liga teams. And then we've not even mentioned the goalkeepers yet. And I think this is really part of the problem for the strikers in La Liga is I would say La Liga maybe has the best pool of goalkeepers right now. At the very top level, you've got Oblak, Courtois, Ter Stegen, Unai Simon, really top level guys. But then beneath that, there's just so much quality. Marco Dimitrovic at Eibar, Rui Silva, Aitor Fernandez, Bono, Alex Ramiro, Pacheco. There's few clubs in La Liga that would describe their goalkeeping position as one of weakness. And if you compare that to some of the calamitous goalkeeping situations in the Premier League, yeah, I think that does go some way to explaining the difference in the goals scored numbers.
Do you expect these numbers to decrease, stagnate, or increase in the coming years?
Yeah, I do think it is only a blip. Maybe there is some long-term trend here, but I think the real stark differences we've seen is something temporary. Some of these goalkeepers and centre-backs are going to eventually be signed by clubs from other leagues. And then the top Spanish clubs will always buy the best attacking talent. I mean, I'm sure one of Kylian Mbappe or Erling Haaland will be in La Liga before long, and other talents will come too. So I don't think it's a long-term problem. I think it's a strange stage where Barcelona and Real Madrid are in this moment where their main attackers are Messi and Benzema, who are still good enough to be starting up front and leading the league for those teams, but are also that end bit of their careers where they're not producing the crazy numbers of before. So I do think this is kind of temporary, but there are some trends here that might last a bit longer.
Ewan McTeer is a Madrid-based football journalist. You can find more of his work on the La Liga Lowdown podcast and Managing Madrid. He is also the author of the book Ibar the Brave. The music for this episode was provided under the Creative Commons license by Blue Dot Sessions, and you can find more information about those songs in the episode show notes. This episode was produced by myself and John McKenzie. I'm Josh Schneider-Weiler. Thanks for listening to Football Today.